Hey, Rebel Rouser. I'm Alan Voivod, and this is Star Wars 7 by 7. So, here we go. This announcement from Lucasfilm that filming has begun on Episode 9. It came out on July 27th, and filming started on August 1st. And in the release, it says, the second line in the release is that J.J. Abrams returns to direct the final installment of the Skywalker saga, quote unquote. So that phrase, the final installment of the Skywalker saga, that's a very important phrase. And if you're thinking about 10 years down the road from now in 2029 when they decide to do a 10, 11, and 12, or might they do a 10, 11, and 12? Are those really going to be Skywalker saga movies anymore? Or are they just saga movies, if you will, when we see an older Rey, an older Finn, an older Poe Dameron, that sort of thing? Well, you could construe it in that fashion if you wanted to, but that's not what I think the phrase, the final installment in the Skywalker saga, actually means. I think it has ramifications for two particular characters, not the least of which is Rey, but we'll get to her in a moment. I want to start with Kylo Ren, aka Ben Solo, who is technically a Skywalker, yes, of course, on his mother's side. So there is a ramification for him. If this is the final installment, in the Skywalker saga, then that suggests Kylo Ren, aka Ben Solo, is going to face a certain kind of fate. Would that mean that he's going to die by the end of this episode? Well, that's certainly a possibility, but the other possibility, of course, is that he is just going to be battered into insignificance and that ultimately he is going to be laid so low as a result of the events of Episode 9 that there is absolutely nothing for him after the movie ends. There's no reason to come back and look at anything to do with Ben Solo after the events of Episode 9. And I'll be honest with you, I've had a hard time thinking about what could possibly happen that wouldn't be death, that would be ultimately a final kind of thing for Ben Solo to go through. I mean, it's not like he can be stripped of his force powers or anything like that, so I don't think it's going to be anything on that level. And, you can't put him in any sort of weird coma because people come out of comas or something like that. No, ultimately, just death is where I think it's going for Ben Solo as a result of just calling it the final installment in the Skywalker saga. So that is part one. Now, then, of course, you have Rey. And the situation with Rey, as we know it right now, is that Rey is not a Skywalker. She is not a Solo. She is not connected by blood in any way, shape, or form, as far as we know, to the Skywalkers, and therefore is not part of the quote-unquote Skywalker saga. Now, I know there are fan theories kicking around where it's entirely possible that J.J. Abrams could reverse what Rian Johnson did in The Last Jedi and make it so that it's not just random filthy junk traders that were Rey's parents that had nothing to do with anyone or anything, but that the possibility still exists to rewrite the history, or to write the history, if you will, and make it so that, actually it turns out that Rey is a Skywalker after all, that maybe Luke in his travels and the legends of Luke Skywalker, as it were, that collection of short stories by Ken Liu, that, maybe on one of those planets, he sowed some wild oats or something like that, and suddenly we've got Rey, and maybe there are a few others kicking around for all we know. But no, that seems to be a highly unlikely scenario. And I can't see J.J. Abrams going back on what Rian Johnson did. It seems like the only way to go with this is forward. And so that means that we're not going to see Rey christened or rechristened as a lost Skywalker. And so I think that calling it the final installment of the Skywalker saga there also makes it clear that there is not going to be any sort of revisionist history on Rey's parents, that it is going to stay exactly what it is, that she is the daughter of two random people from the middle of nowhere, just like a lot of other Jedi have been in the past. So there you go. One little phrase, one little snippet of a thing, and boy, oh boy, does it actually potentially carry a lot of meaning. And that is going to do it for today's episode of the podcast. with the exception of a little extra thing I'll do over on the audio version at sw7x7.com/iTunes or wherever you like to listen to podcasts, so do check that out. For now, though, it remains for me to say thank you so much for watching, and may the Force be with you wherever in the world you may be.